concrete walls. There's a place for us where we could go, where we could be alone. Between city lights, we don't have to hide. I wanna go, do you wanna follow? There's something in the air, I can't explain it, but it's there. Ain't nobody gonna find us in our secret love affair. I don't wanna have to hide no more, it shouldn't be unfair. I wanna go, and I wanna know, do you wanna follow? Baby, do you wanna follow? Come with me, do you wanna follow? Baby, can't you see that? I wanna go, and I wanna know, do you wanna follow? Baby, do you wanna follow? Come with me, do you wanna follow? Baby, can't you see that? I wanna go, and I wanna know, do you wanna follow? I can't understand why we can't hold hands, but they don't know what we have is real love. Aren't you sick and tired of having to hide? I know a place, do you wanna follow? There's something in the air, I can't explain it, but it's there. Ain't nobody gonna find us in our secret love affair. I don't wanna have to hide no more, it shouldn't be unfair. I wanna go, and I wanna know, do you wanna follow? Baby, do you wanna follow? Come with me, do you wanna follow? Baby, can't you see that? I wanna go, and I wanna know, do you wanna follow? Do you wanna follow? Baby, do you wanna follow? Come with me, do you wanna follow? Baby, can't you see that? I wanna go, and I wanna know, do you wanna follow?
Welcome to the live stream, everybody. It's very good to be with you here on a Sunday afternoon. As always, as usual, as often. I've missed a few lately. I've missed too many of these lately because of travel to say as always. I feel like I don't have that privilege, that prerogative. As usual, as often on a Sunday afternoon to talk with you about FPV. And it's good. It's very good. We've gone from it's beautiful outside, I wish I was flying instead of being here, to it's so stinking hot outside, I'm glad I'm in the air conditioning not flying. So there you go. Perfect. It's the perfect time to answer your questions about FPV. And that's what we're going to be doing. We're going to spend a couple hours. You guys are going to leave questions. I'm going to answer them. That's basically what we do here. Occasionally we go off on a tear about something. But Blunty, I have a proclamation for this week. You ready for it?
I think I can guess what it's going to be, but go ahead.
What is it? Go ahead. What do you think it is?
I think the proclamation is no remote ID. That's
right. We are not going to talk about remote ID this week. That's exactly right. I saw the comment from, I don't forget who it was. I saw a comment from somebody in the chat, and they were like, please no remote ID this week. And I was like, actually, I like that because I've said what I have to say. It's out there. I don't have anything to add, and we talked about it a lot the last 2 weeks. So, Blunty, and in case you guys don't know, Blunty is, for these live streams, you're my sort of call screener and producer. At least on these live streams. He's going to be taking your questions and queuing them up for me. Here they come in the chat. Here they come over here in the Discord server, the exclusive Discord server of my patrons. And he's going to be queuing them up here on screen for me. Oh, wait, here we go. Queue. These are my queued questions. Yeah, and we're going to be answering questions. Let you know, 2 things before we get started. 1, if you want to make sure that I read your question, the only way to do that is to leave a super chat. There is kind of an understanding between streamers and the chat that if they leave super chats that you probably ought to read the super chat. Well, I guess some streamers are so big that they don't read all the super chats, but I'm not there yet. So if you want to make sure I get your question, leave a super chat. What we usually do is for about the first 15 or 20 minutes of the stream, we take just questions from everybody, and then we do a bunch of super chats until we run out of super chats. So that's how that's going to work. And as always, if I don't get to your question on stream, you are more than welcome to email. jb@joshuabardwell.com is my email, and I will talk to you there. I am not selective about who I talk to. I'll answer just about any question anybody asks. I'll do my best to help. Yeah. So, where are we going to start? Ooh, let's start with this question from Swarm HD. Can you change the cam on the O3 unit to a better one like the Nebula Pro? You cannot. Currently, the O3 camera is the only camera that works with the O3 Air unit. Now, you could use the Vista Air unit with a Nebula Pro, and you can bind the Vista to your goggles too by updating the firmware on the Vista. So that is a way you could, if you had the goggles 2 or the Integra, get that to work. But the O3 Air unit itself only works with that camera. Not only is the plug different, which I'm 99% sure the plug is different, but even if it plugs in, it's a digital data link connection. So like even if there was a camera out there that had the same plug and you could physically plug it in, there's no expectation that it would actually work, and it probably wouldn't. Big JFPV wants to know, is there a way to stream video out of the V2 goggles if I have an O3 Air unit? I don't think so, although I feel like I want to do a video where I run through these different permutations of what works with what, because it's kind of confusing. Unfortunately, I'm missing some hardware. So if you have the O3 Air unit, you can plug in to your phone and the DJI Fly app will work. And the DJI Pro controller will work. But as far as streaming the video, so I guess the question would be, if you have the O3 Air unit, does the DJI Fly app work with the V2 goggles? And my expectation would be yes, although I'm not 100% sure about that. The chat can certainly pop up if you guys know. I would expect, but that's not really streaming unless you have another piece of software that can stream the footage from your phone. So, like for example, there is a tool. It's the VOD Ninja. Blunty, that's actually the same tool you use to call into the news. And I think, isn't there a version of VOD Ninja that runs on your phone? I think there is. There sure as heck is. So what you could do, oops, wrong screen, sorry. What you could do is you could run the DJI Fly app on your phone, and you could use the VDO Ninja. That's what it is, VDO Ninja app. You could use that on your phone to stream that to another source, and that would kind of work. But that's probably not exactly what you were hoping here. You're probably looking for something more simple, but there we go. QIN, Quinn FPV, Chin FPV says there's a, oh, that's not right. There's a better gimbal choice for the TX16S and the Boxer. What the hell is this? These Flashguy makes good gimbals. These are Flashguy gimbals? No, don't do that. Flashguy metal throttle centering Hall gimbals for NV14 PL18. Why is this better? Why is it better? What's better about it? I'm waiting for him to tell me in the chat. I mean, it looks like a well-made gimbal. Flashguy makes very good gimbals. The big question I would have is, does it just plug in? Like, Flashguy gimbals are the Nirvana NV14 gimbals are digital, aren't they? Does it plug in to the mainboard on the Boxer and the TX16S? And also, the other question is, do they support the synced polling rate? So I remember from the release of the Elysium radio that the gimbals were capable of higher polling rates, but the default firmware didn't support it. But that might be something that like EdgeTX would fix. So for them to really be worth considering, they need to support synced polling so that they can run at the same polling rate as your RC Link. I'm intrigued. I suspect that most people will not be... I suspect for most people, the gimbal is not the thing that makes them a better or worse pilot. So on some level, this is just, it's a little bit wanky. But what the heck? We like wanking about things. It's fine. Why don't you DM me about this and let's talk about it? Is it Chin or Chi or Quinn? I don't know how to say your name, sorry. But why don't you DM me about this and we'll talk about it. That's intriguing. Jay Slides wants to know, what's your opinion on TBS coming back? It is Chin, thank you. So for those of you who don't know, there was a TBS Lounge live stream where Trappy talked about some of the things that have happened to the company in the last 3 or 4 years and addressed some of the, where has TBS been? TBS has always been a very innovative company, always got something new coming out. Famously, when Immersion RC was about to drop Ghost, and Ghost was this new 2.4 gigahertz control link, then TBS dropped Tracer and was like, hey, we've been working on this forever. Oh, did you guys want that? I'm being a little sarcastic, but so the fact that Express LRS on some level has been eating TBS's lunch, on some level, there's people who are now very offended, no, there's no comparison between Express LRS and TBS. TBS is way better. Look, just from pure market share perspective, Express LRS has been eating TBS's lunch. That's just a fact. And part of that is because Express LRS offers a feature set and a price point that people find compelling. Part of that is because TBS hasn't been making enough product for people to buy. Their shit has just been out of stock. And lots of things are out of stock, but Express LRS receivers aren't out of stock. Someone's making one that you can buy. So apparently, according to this TBS Lounge, there have been some internal politics between the owners of the company. Trappy, I haven't watched the thing. I just watched Madstech's video about it, and then I heard people talking about it. I haven't actually sat down to watch it yet. Bad reviewer, I guess, or bad reporter. But what I'm hearing is that there was some internal politics. A part owner of the company or a co-owner of the company tried to nuke the company. And the bottom line is that right now, according to this video, Trappy is the sole owner of the company, and basically, we're back, baby! Is going to try to get TBS back into the sort of, position that we know them to be capable of being. And that's pretty exciting. It's interesting because Express LRS has shown that people want certain things from a control link that Crossfire doesn't offer. Right? Things like higher packet rates and lower latency, specifically. And it would be very interesting to see a company like TBS deliver the kind of hardware quality and ease of use that we know TBS is capable of, and that ExpressLRS often doesn't have. Depending on who you buy your hardware from, the hardware could be shitty. And as far as ease of use goes, oh, ExpressLRS. Sorry, ExpressLRS. You're not easy to use. Not for most people. So it would be very interesting to see TBS take another crack at Tracer and Crossfire to try to make them address some of those things that the market wants that they don't offer. It would also be really interesting because TBS was always a very strong player in the analog video category. But analog video is much less prominent than it was. It's still very significant. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying, oh, analog is dead. But like a lot of people have switched over to digital in one form or another. And it really feels like TBS is missing out by not having a piece of that action. I have heard people say it's pointless. I have heard people say it's so difficult and expensive to make a new digital video system, and then at the end of the day, here's how it works. DJI gets like half the pie, and then everybody else, HC0, Walksnail, that's it, gets the rest of the pie. So basically, a lot of people are just fighting for the scraps that DJI leaves behind, which means the market is extremely small. So I've heard some people say, I'm not interested in getting into that category. It's too competitive. It's not really worth it. It would be very interesting, though, for example, to see TBS partnering with somebody like Walksnail or HD0. And I don't know if that's something they'd be interested in doing. TBS has always, I shouldn't say always, TBS has often been a company who makes their own stuff. There have been cases where they've partnered with other manufacturers before, though. So I don't know. It's just interesting that TBS, like the big thing they do is control link and video link. And they make other stuff too, right? But those are like the two biggest things they do. And for them not to be really involved in the digital stuff is an obvious opportunity. So very, very interesting. I hope that they come back and are as prominent as they have been. Let's see here. We got this question from Freewood. Freewood was in the chat 20 minutes before the stream began, trying to get this question answered. I hope Freewood is still here. We're going to go ahead and take it. My plane crashed with Caddx Vista. I have OSD but no video. New camera and cable, still no video. Camera and cable work on my other Vista. What could the problem be? Freewood, this is a case where I'm going to tell you what you probably already know, but you're hoping that it's not true. So you're like in the denial stage of grief, if you will. Based on your analysis, OSD but no video, okay? That means that the air unit is alive and talking to the flight controller, but is not getting data from the camera. Okay, so now you swapped the camera and the cable and still no video. Then you put the camera and the cable on another air unit and they worked, so they're good. What does that leave? It's your air unit, and specifically it sounds like the camera connector on your air unit may be broken. Probably at this point you're going to replace the Vista. Somewhere out there, there's someone who might be able to repair it by like desoldering and replacing the camera connector. I don't know who that person is or where they are. And that's a very difficult repair. Good luck. Matmo46 wants to know, I can't bind my V2 goggles to my air unit, but my radio does bind. Everything is running version. That's not a firmware version. I need to know what air unit you have, Matmo. Is it the O3 or the Vista? And I need to know which radio you have. Is it the black one or the gray one? And I need to know what actual firmware version you have, because 006000 is not a firmware version. There are quirks with binding goggles and air units, but without knowing that information, I can't help you. So put that information in the chat, and hopefully Blunty will catch it, and we'll swing back around to this question. Hey, Blunty, are the super chats broken? I was about to do super chats. We have no super chats.
I don't know. I have not seen a single one come in yet.
Me neither. All right. Okay, you guys, this would be the time when we start answering super chats. If you've got a question that you want me to answer right now, this is your opportunity. Leave a super chat. I will grab it. Until we get a super chat, though, we'll just keep answering regular chats. Oh, they've figured it out, Blunty. They've figured out that if no one leaves super chats, then I have to keep answering the regular questions. No, Eric Ashner, thank you for a $5 super chat. Just a test, though. It is working. Thanks, Eric Ashner, for verifying for me that it's working. CKFPV wants to know, how do you find out the firmware version of ExpressLRS on your drone? CK, the best way to do that is to let the receiver go into Wi-Fi mode. The simplest way to put it in Wi-Fi mode is just to power it up and wait for 60 seconds with your controller turned off. If the receiver is bound, then you can go into the Lua script and go to the Wi-Fi menu, and you can force the receiver to activate Wi-Fi right now. But I'm guessing it's not bound, and that's why you're asking. Wait for about a minute. The LED on the receiver will begin fast blinking, and that means it's in Wi-Fi mode. If you go to your Wi-Fi networks on your phone or your laptop, you will see the ExpressLRS_RX Wi-Fi network. You connect to it. The password is ExpressLRS, all lowercase. And then you go to the address 10.0.0.1 in your web browser, and it brings up the web page for the receiver, and you can see all kinds of information about the receiver. If you have an SPI receiver, though, then that doesn't work, and the answer is different. But most people don't have an SPI receiver, so I'm going to leave that answer out for now. Hugh Bradburn, thanks for a $2 super chat. Blunty is the man. All right, super chats are working. Just no one's leaving them. All right, got it. Well, I will continue answering questions, and if we get a... Oh, here we go. Oh, here they come. Here they come. Okay. Got to get nervous there for a minute. I'll wait for Blunty to cue those up. Stevo, thank you for a $5 super chat. Can you recommend another board to spoof remote ID? The one from your video link is sold out. I am not recommending that anyone do anything illegal or unethical, but if you wanted to, like, test remote ID, do, like, pen testing and stuff, which is completely valid, like what I did, oops, wrong window. What I did is I just searched for NodeMCU. NodeMCU. And there's a ton of NodeMCU development boards you can get. In fact, I should probably update that link because, like, I mean, I just linked to the one I used, but you don't have to buy that one. There's a million of them. Let me just let me just modify that real quick. I'll put that link in.
Just FYI, there's a guy in chat who developed another project. I'm not sure if you saw it, but he posted it called Squid RID.
What's it called?
It's in the Discord. It's Squid RID. There's a GitHub link there.
Oh, Squid RID. No, not Squidward. Nice try. Okay, that's not Squid RID. Yeah. Let's see here. Oh, yeah, I did see this one. So this is another remote ID test tool, and it's got a configurator that can configure the device without having to reflash it. That's nice.
He also suggests that you should buy the Zhao C3 instead of the NodeMCU.
Oh, okay. What is it called?
The XIAO C3.
What's that do? Waterproof.
I don't know.
That's not right.
Maybe split it into two.
Seed Studio Xiao ESP32C3. Wonder why that's better. Oh, it's got a UFL connector. That's nice. Ooh. Cool. Looks like it might be time for an updated video. Yeah. That's really cool. The UFL connector means you have potential to hook it up to an antenna or amplifier, which, you can use your imagination to figure out why that could be useful. Oh, there's even, look at this, Grove GPS. There's even one with GPS. I think that this type of thing really benefits from a GPS because, like, if you're generating, you probably want to generate fake traces near your actual location. I guess not always, but if you're generating drones that are, 7,000 miles away, that's not as interesting. So yeah, I'll probably do a follow-up video. Would love to talk about this. And if there's better hardware and better software, then I definitely would like to do a follow-up video about it. There were a few people who were annoyed that I would make a video about something that is intended, that has the potential to disrupt, remote ID. And, it's interesting. If you had an RF jammer, I probably wouldn't make a video about an RF jammer because there's too much potential for someone to do something shitty that I don't agree with like a general RF jammer. Be like, no, I'm not going to do that. I wouldn't make a video about that. But like this, what's like the worst case scenario if someone were to spam fake remote ID? Like, set aside the fact that there's legitimate reasons. Like, the ultimate sort of CYA for making content about this is that there are legitimate reasons to use this. To do, if I'm developing a remote ID module, I could use this to test it. If I'm doing some kind of remote ID security testing, pen testing, I could use this, right? There's a million legitimate white hat reasons to use this remote ID spoofer. So for me to make content about it, right? Fine. But I didn't just make content about it and like wink, wink, white hat. I explicitly said that you can use this as like a smokescreen to disguise yourself. And that's a little bit further away from like pure white hat stuff. And like my thinking is that it's not a given that this is illegal, right? So doing things that are not quite technically illegal but are still annoying is a completely valid form of like civil disobedience, okay? And so I feel like this falls into that gray area where this is not explicitly illegal, but it certainly is annoying, and therefore it's a valid form of protest. But the other thing is that, like, would I support an ADS-B spoofer? Hell no. ADS-B is actually used by real aircraft with real people on them to avoid colliding with each other. And if you are out there spoofing or jamming ADS-B, you are putting actual lives at risk, potentially. And that's not okay. But what does remote ID do? What does it do? What does it actually do? It doesn't actually do anything beneficial. It doesn't. It doesn't prevent crime, or it just is a shitty thing that the government makes you do because fuck you. And so when I think about, is it ethical to make content about an RFID jammer? Well, number one, it's not explicitly illegal. Although, as people have pointed out, if the government catches you doing it, they can probably find a way to try to charge you. Like, what was the guy's name, the founder of Reddit? Aaron Schwartz. Go look up. Is this
where I should stop you?
Why?
Like, you're 10 minutes into an RID rant, so...
Oh, fuck. Oh, no. It is
Did you really
this is
not
remote
realize?
ID.
I'm sorry.
No, I'm talking about spoofing. I didn't think I was talking about remote ID. No, you're right. I missed it.
Okay.
Okay, no, you're right. Anyway, all right. So I made that content. Thank you. Thank you. That's why
I was giving you time. I thought you were going to pull out and realize you were in it and then
No,
keep
I missed
moving
it.
on.
No. Oh my God. All right. All right. Thank you, Plenty. It was a super chat. I had to answer the super chat. Moving on. Fortune Cookie, thank you for a $5 super chat. I'm maiden by Odonata HD today. It flew great. No issues. Shout out to the Oda Bros for being the secret best FPV community online. For sure. Odonata fans. Absolutely. Jair Diggles, thanks for a $5 super chat. What's up, JB? What's the best way to find flying buddies in my area? The best way to find flying buddies in your area, number one, go to the MultiGP website and look for if there's a chapter near you. There's a chapter map on the MultiGP website, and you just look, and sometimes you'll find out there's a chapter 45 minutes away from you or something. Then let's assume that that's not the case. Then what you got to do is you've got to start posting. Go to Facebook, go to Reddit. Like there's an r/Knoxville subreddit, okay? If I didn't have anybody to fly with, I would go to r/Knoxville and I would make a post every week. I'm going to be out at Lakeshore Park flying FPV drones this Saturday at 10 a.m. If you're interested, come on out. You know, FPV drone meetup, Knoxville, Saturday, July 14th, whatever. And what you want to do is you want to be the one that other people who want to find FPV find when they start searching. You're going to do it on Facebook. Make a Facebook group, Knoxville FPV drone racing, so that people who are on Facebook and are like, I don't know, you're going to be the first one. That's the thing. If it doesn't exist, you have to be the seed. Here's the thing. There are other people out there who want to fly FPV and they don't know who to meet up with. You have to be the guy who starts the group. And then and it might take you 6 months before one guy shows up. But after 2 years, you'll have 50 guys or 20 guys or 15 guys or whatever. That's how you do it.
I have a question. Is there any world in which something other than Facebook will be a possibility for this?
I mean, Reddit?
I mean, I ask because a lot of people don't have a Facebook anymore, or they say it's for old people. And then I had somebody yesterday told me they're too old for Facebook. So, I don't know. I just think it's interesting that, like, hey, the only way to find people is go on Facebook, make an account, post in a group, make a group, and then gather these people together. And it's like a bummer that there's no other resource or possibility.
I agree. I mean, there's Drone Nation.
Right. There's like 3 apps. I think there's like 3 different ones like that, right? Drone Nation, I think, may be the bigger one.
Drone Nation. But the thing is, I don't know how many users Drone Nation has. Like, Drone Nation is awesome for what it is. It's awesome. In case you guys don't know, like a lot of people don't know this exists, so they're gonna get 500 more subscribers now. Drone Nation is a FPV social network and app, if you will. You got anything on my timeline? So, like, if I've got the timeline, I can post on my timeline. We got challenges. It's just not that active. I'm just not sure how many people are going to, like, your chances of random city being here. What's another app, Blunty? Is there another one we should look at?
Maybe some people can tell us. I've been sent a few different ones by email. I'm going to try to find them. I've been looking for them to the news email, but I know there's a couple other ones at least. Like the Spot Finder stuff that sort of does that as well. Like there was, I'm not sure if Spot Finder is still around, like without the E at the end.
What a Blunty
Drone Buddy.
There's Drone Buddy?
Yeah.
Drone Buddy. Drone Buddy. Interesting. Key info. Does it have no fly zone map? Where to fly drone? So you could download Drone Buddy and make a spot and try to meet up with people. That's cool. I didn't know this existed. Like, how can we see how many installs it has? 100K plus downloads. That's a lot. All right, let's install that on my phone. Let's install that on my phone. Maybe it's interesting.
Also, we should point out there is a local resources channel on your Discord, and the other Discords have like ways to meet up with local people. It's just more difficult with the Discord because it's not like, it's not easily kind of like hooking you together, you know.
But is it? Because now Discord has public servers, doesn't it?
Yes.
Is there? Are there like indexes of public Discord servers? If I go to Discord and I go to, not DMs, where can I go to like just search for Discord servers, Blunty? Is that a thing? Are you there?
Sorry, I dropped out for a second.
No problem.
Yeah, so the only way I know of is if you add a new server.
Yeah, explore discoverable servers. So in Discord, I go explore discoverable servers, and I search for, let's search for FPV. Oh, okay. Great. Now, what if I were to make a new server and call it FPV Knoxville? See, the point is...
That's an interesting idea, yeah.
Yeah. So the point is to create a resource that others will find. So it doesn't seem like there's regional servers, but you could check on these regional servers, but it's very easy to make a new server, create my own for a club or community, blah, 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 server name, FPV, drone racing. See, I'm just keyword stuffing here. FPV drone racing, Knoxville, Tennessee. Create server. Welcome. Boom, I just did it. That's it. Is this a public server? Like, I didn't even mean to do that. That was actually super easy. Have I just made a public server?
I don't know if they're automatically community public anymore, or if you have to go in there to the settings and do it.
Where is that? Where is that? Do you know?
Go back here in user settings. Go back to the server settings.
Server settings.
So it should be at the top on the drop down where it says FPV drone racing Knoxville.
Server settings.
Oh, there you go. That works. Yeah. But any of those should pull it up.
Community settings. Yeah. Are you building a community? Get started. Yes.
There
Boom.
you go.
So that's you know, if you don't like Facebook, that's what I would do. Make a public Discord server named, you know, FPV drone racing my city. Like stuff it with keywords, and then just wait for people to find it and cross your fingers. But you need to just put the bottom line is the answer is put yourself out there. I'm gonna delete this. Can I delete this server now? I don't want to actually have this server. How do I delete a server, Blunty?
It should be in the same server settings at the bottom, I believe.
Delete server. Okay, I'm deleting this server. I don't want this server. Okay, enter Discord auth code. I have to two-factor. Fuck. All right, I'll delete it later. Yeah. Okay. Little one-on-one asks, how about HC0 goggles spoofing remote ID? Blunty, that's a super chat. I have to give it at least 30 seconds. The HC0 goggles have support for a built-in ExpressLRS receiver to do the ExpressLRS backpack function. Based on that, we know that the HC0 goggles can interface with an ESP device. And so we could imagine a world where the HC0 goggles could broadcast remote ID information. However, and they're open source, so someone could write that code in. I doubt that HC0 would do that because that would be a little too sketchy. There we go. That's it, right? Noozle 3D. Noozle 3D, good to see you here. Thank you for a $10 super chat. Much love from your friends at Noozle 3D. Noozle 3D is the guy who does all the design and prints from Noozle 3D. Does all the design and prints for Rotor Riot, among other things. It's always fun hanging out with him at Rampage. He recently converted his print farm from Prusa Mark III to Bamboo P1P. So I'm working on my review of the Bamboo X1 Carbon. I think it'd be interesting to talk to him about that. It's always nice. If you have a Rotor Riot frame, he is working on getting the prints, the STL files for all the prints uploaded. Where you can download them. They're not all uploaded yet. Some of them he didn't actually do the design, so he can't post the STL. He just prints it. But for the ones where he did the design, he is working on getting those up. It's pretty cool if you have a Rotor Riot frame. Noozle 3D. Matt Sanders, thank you for a $5 super chat. Have you tried the Newbie Drone M10 GPS with compass? I have not. 21 sats locked in under 1 minute. That's amazing. That's amazing. Noozle says all the latest files have STLs available. Gotcha. Rob Axelson asks, thank you for a $5 super chat. Do you make a poolish when you make pizza dough? Rob, I've done breads before with poolish. I think that poolish is a great way. I mean, just if you make a poolish, you know what I'm about to say. But it's a great way to get improved flavor, a deeper, more complex flavor with extended fermentation. I have tried making pizza dough with a poolish before and have not had good results because the recipe that I use isn't tailored for a poolish. So like it was like horribly over risen. Either it had too much yeast or the yeast just had way too long to develop. I thought it had a really nice flavor, but I didn't like the texture at all. So normally I don't make a poolish just because the recipe that I learned isn't based on a poolish. But I have tried it. I just didn't have a lot of success with it. How to turn off summer fish tank mode in Goggles 2. Thank you for a $2 super chat. Summer fish tank mode. What is he talking about, Blunty? Does he mean the fisheye wide angle? Is that what he means?
I don't know. He did not have any other statement there, and I have not been able to decipher what that means. I'm
going to guess that the global source is referring to the fact that the O3 camera has a very wide fisheye field of view. There's nothing that you can do about that. If you change the field of view, it only changes the recorded field of view, not the one you view in the goggles. The only thing to do would be to use a Vista air unit with a different camera. Ellis for Life, thanks for a $1 super chat. JB, I sent you a video about Oops, wrong one. Sorry, Timon. JB, I sent you a video about low throttle instability over Gmail. How will you address that on BF 4.4? So I'm not sure about the email you sent me. I don't think I've seen that yet. Low throttle instability, the number one way to address that is to have air mode turned on. The next way to address that if your idle speed is too low, that could cause it. But in general, if you have the air mode, the number one thing that causes low throttle instability to be bad is if air mode is turned off. Limits wants to know how to set up the battery range for the Boxer 2S LiPo. Limits, when I'm using a 2S LiPo, I usually set the low voltage warning at about 3.3 volts. The reason I do that is that for a 2S LiPo, it's not likely to get that far out of balance. You only have 2 cells. If you have an 8-cell battery, like the chances of one of the cells being out of balance and going below 3.0 volts is more likely, right? Because you have so many cells. Your average cell voltage, there's more room for distribution between them. But with a 2-cell battery, your average cell voltage is likely to be pretty close to the voltage of the other cells. Like chances are that they're both about the same internal resistance. And the other thing is that the radio doesn't pull enough current to cause significant voltage sag. So I think on a quadcopter, I would stop flying at around 3.5 volts. But on the radio, I like to have the warning around 3.3 or 3.4 because that gets me, I still have plenty of flight time left before we go down to like 3.1 where the battery is just about to die. But that's where I put it. One DFGA wants to know, is there a way to get the Boxer to call out the per cell voltage? Blunty, I just realized I'm not unqueuing the messages like we talked about last week. It'll take me a little while to remember to do that, but I did just remember. Thank you for taking care of that. No, there's no sensor that detects the individual cell voltage, so there's no way to do what you're asking. I mean, such a thing could exist, but it doesn't. Oh, Sensitive Sounds, thank you for 100. Check Karuna. I have a problem with my Whoop Mob 6, where once I max out and release the throttle, then max it again, it starts wiggling and falls to the ground. What's happening? My guess is that when you drop the throttle, you begin falling into your own prop wash. And then when you jam the throttle, it gets into this feedback mode where the prop wash causes it to fall to the ground. That's a common problem with Tiny Whoops. If you've added weight to it, that can certainly make it worse. I don't think the Mobula 6 should do that from the factory, but it depends on how far and how fast you've let it fall. The number one way to avoid this problem is if you've dropped throttle and you're falling, don't fall straight down, but rather angle forward and then raise the throttle gradually. Don't just jam the throttle full and you'll fly out of it. It could be that you've got some kind of problem like mechanically, but assuming that your quad is mechanically sound, that's going to be my guess as to what's happening. Distant Films wants to know, pineapple on pizza. Thank you for $2, Distant Films. When it rains, it pours. Now we have a ton of super chats. Fantastic. I don't eat pineapple on pizza every day. That's not like my favorite topping, but I'm not opposed to it, and I have enjoyed a pineapple pizza in the past. I think sweet ingredients on pizza, pineapple is acidic, but a little bit sweet. If you think about it, like, what is a tomato? Tomato is the core ingredient of a pizza. And if you think about it, a tomato is a little bit sweet and a little bit acidic. A pineapple is a very similar flavor profile to tomato. And I don't think there's anything fundamentally wrong with pineapple on pizza. That's my take. Hang on one second here. Scribs, thank you for a $10 super chat. I got flying recently thanks to you. Thank you again. There's an old tower or chimney in my town. I want to fly it, but it has some kind of wireless tech on it. How to tell if it's safe to fly near? First of all, if it's the kind of thing where if you crashed into it and broke something, it would be a big deal, don't fly near it, is my official advice. Okay? If it's the kind of thing where if you crash and need to retrieve, you're going to be like going into a super sensitive area that someone really doesn't want you in, don't fly near it. Now, I'm not a prude. Like, I've flown at construction sites before, like on a Sunday when no one's there. And the construction site has no trespassing signs. And if I crash, I don't see that no trespassing sign. I go get my quad, I leave, I don't hurt anything, I don't make any trouble. That's a thing that I've done in the past. So I'm not trying to be like, your grandma telling you to be a good boy. But I wouldn't fly near a cell tower. Number one, because if there's interference, it's likely to have interference. Number two, because if I hit something and break something, it's going to be a gigantic big deal. And what are the chances of that? Not very big. But I don't want to make somebody pay thousands of dollars for a tower climber to go up and replace an antenna. And number two, those are super locked down areas. If I crash and I can't get my quad back, I'm not going to be able to go in and get it. It's just not, the juice isn't worth the squeeze. So let's assume that none of that stuff is true. The way to find out is you just carefully go fly near it and see if you fail safe. What are you going to do? Pull out a spectrum analyzer? Probably not. You just carefully go fly near it, and if you fail safe, then you go get your quad and you go, okay, not today. That's the answer. Philip Kunas. Fat Shark Dom V3. What cam and VRX do you suggest? Thank you for 249 euros. For video receiver, I think TBS Fusion or Immersion RC Rapid Fire are the only choice. If you simply don't have the budget, buy something else. But if you're flying analog, then you need a video receiver that will make the best of it. Because analog it needs all the help it can get. And TBS Fusion and Immersion RC Rapid Fire are hands down the best. As far as camera, I like the Runcam Phoenix, but there's a lot of personal preference about that. Tico Snaps, thanks for a $5 super chat. I've seen Yannick FPV on YouTube Shorts use a Nintendo Switch controller, Wii handset, and even a Game Boy to fly his drone. Real or fake? What do you think? Tico Snaps, there's a Rotor Riot episode out there where Drew rigged up an NES, an original NES controller, to let us fly the drone. He wired the NES controller into his radio, soldering the buttons and stuff in so that, for example, when you press the A button, it blips the throttle, right? So we would just press the button like playing Flappy Bird, bip, 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 and the drone would kind of go like this. And he rigged the left, right, up, down of the NES controller into his Spectrum radio so that when we press left, right, up, down, it activates the gimbal. It was doable. It was very difficult, though, because these are not analog controls. So, for example, we had to put the drone into angle mode so that we could tap left, 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 and it would kind of yaw around. We couldn't have flown it acro mode. I don't think it would have been possible. We had the idea, Ciati FPV says he does this, he flies with a keyboard. We had the idea to set up a keyboard, WASD, to try to do the same thing. It is possible to rig this stuff up with sufficient wiring. What you do is you take the outputs from the controller, the Game Boy, whatever. You wire those into a real, like a Radio Master or something, and you solder those in so that they're replacing your inputs. It is possible. But if he's like just flying normally, no. Then I think it's fake. Because those are not analog inputs. You have to have analog inputs to actually fly a quad. And if he's flying with a Game Boy, those aren't analog inputs. That's my take. Like, let's look. Is he on Instagram? On YouTube Shorts. Let's see if we can find Yannick and see if we can find an example of this. Yannick FPV, Shorts. What do we got here? Okay, I'm going to turn the music off because I don't want to... Let's see. So here he's using joysticks from the Joy-Con. This is plausible. 1,000% plausible. This is an analog input, and it could control a quad. It's hard to tell if the stick movements line up. The stick movements look like they mostly line up. Mostly. Hard to tell. But it's at least plausible that that's real. So let's see if we can find another example. Let's go back to his main page. Where's another example? I don't see any of him like do a Game Boy or whatever. Is that it? That's all of them. Yeah, that's it. Where's the other one? The keyboard one. It's not on YouTube, that's for sure. I think it's more likely to be fake than not, but I think it's not impossible that it could be real. Nasty6 FPV, thanks for a $2 super chat. Do we have another question from Nasty6, or is it just a sticker or something? Can you run 6S? on T-Motor Pacer 3400 kV 3.5-inch props. I don't think you should run 6S on 3 or 3.5-inch props because I don't think the batteries in that size are I think the cells are too small and are not good quality. So in my opinion, 3.3 inch is definitely not worth it to run 6S. 3.5 inch is right on the edge. So I would actually, if you're starting from scratch, I would actually recommend using 4S. But if you are committed to 6S, I think you can do that, but you might want to put a motor output limit to bring the RPM down. I think it'll fly, but I think it's a little high. Yeah, John Goblin points out on 6S 3.5 inch, you want to be around 2600 kV. 4S, you want to be, so that's more of a 4S kV, but I think it'll fly. I just think it's going to not be great. And I think you're going to want to use a motor output limit. Yeah, I would get a 4S battery if you can. Would be my recommendation. One second. Continuing to clean up the super chats. NoSkate FPV, thank you for a $10 super chat. My drone won't throttle down. When I arm, it's fine, but when I start to throttle up, it raises and doesn't throttle back down. Hey, NoSkate FPV, are your props on? Or are your props off? If your props are off, that's normal. Just put the props on, go somewhere safe, and test hover it. If your props are on, and it just flies to the moon, that's a different story, but I'm going to guess that your props are off. This is a really common question. No skate says props are on. So you mean it flies to the moon? Is that what you're saying? If it flies to the moon with props on, the number one problem that causes that, in my opinion, is you've got your motors spinning props out, but your flight controller is set to props in, or vice versa. So the next thing I would say to do is check your motor direction. And if that's not it, then I'm going to guess that your PIDs, then I would ask, are you on default PIDs? If yes, if no, then try default PIDs. And then if that doesn't work, I think something is mechanically wrong, like you got a bad gyro. But that's, if it like hovers, but then it won't throttle down after you punch it, that says your PIDs are messed up or your flight controller is messed up. Okay, it's on default PIDs. Now I think there's something mechanically wrong. Like you've got a cracked frame plate and it's causing vibration resonance or something. Are your motors super hot? That would also be consistent with that. Expert, thank you for a €5 super chat. First time catching a stream. Is there some reason I don't hear about JHMCU stuff more often? Got a bunch of their stuff. It works great. I don't know. I don't really have a strong opinion about JHMCU. They came onto the scene a little while back, and I'm always a little slow to pick up on new manufacturers because I don't want to I want them to prove themselves. I don't really have an opinion about JHMCU, whether they make good stuff or bad stuff. Yeah. Stevo 88, thanks for a $2 super chat. Where are we at? Does Stevo have a question? No. Thank you for a $2 super chat, Stevo. Doesn't look like you have a question though. OTR Flyer, thank you for a $5 super chat. How can I get current on the OSD for my 8S build? I have the voltage. You need to get that. The ESC has a current sensor. You're going to use the ESC current sensor. T-Motor 60 amp ESC certainly has a current sensor. So you're going to go into the power and battery tab in Betaflight, and you're going to make sure that the current source is set to ESC sensor. You're, no, back up. I'm wrong. Scratch that. The ESC has a current sensor, but it's an analog current sensor. So you would use onboard ADC. What flight controller are you using? OTR Flyer. You'd need to have the current sense wire from the ESC connected to the current sense input on the flight controller, and then you would use onboard ADC as the source for current. But basically, the current sensing is going to come from the ESC, like it always does. NoSkate FPV says the drone is on the floor in their house. If you have a drone that won't throttle down and you're arming it in your house, you're asking for a hole in your ceiling. I don't want to, like, again, sound like, you know, your grandma saying, be careful, young man, but that's how you get a hole in your ceiling, for the record. If you have a drone that isn't, like, arming a drone in your house is always asking for a hole in the ceiling because sometimes shit goes wrong. But if you have a drone that you know is having problems where it, like, isn't throttling down, definitely don't hover it in your house. Oh, it's a 2-inch. Okay. If it's a 2-inch, what's the worst that could happen? Fair enough. Fine, I'll let it slide. Noozle, thank you for a $10 super chat. In your opinion, what's your favorite battery size for sub 250 quads without GoPros? Well, I mean, Noozle's sub 250 is a big range. I assume we're not talking about a tiny whoop. When you say sub 250, I think of things that are just barely under 250, like 3-inch or 3.5-inch. And on those, I think the sweet spot is like an 850 4S, which is going to come in around 100 grams. Philip Kunes, thank you for a 249 euros. What analog VTX do you suggest for a tiny budget? That's a great question, and it's a great opportunity for me to mention my website, fpvknowitall.com. This is home of the ultimate FPV shopping list. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the 5-inch racing. No, I'm going to go to the analog FPV systems category. And if we scroll down, analog, not goggles. No, not goggles. If we scroll down, we can find video transmitters and cameras. And where's the cheap one? There's a cheap one. I think it's in the racing category. Here we go. This AKK Race video transmitter, it's like 15 bucks. It's a great... Oh, no. Can you not buy it anymore? Oh, no. Shut up. Still available. Okay, so this AKK Race is 10 bucks and is recommended by people who race and on a budget. It's a good one. The other one you could look at is the Eachine Nano VTX. This is recommended by Ciotti. And as we all know, no one disagrees with him. Shut up. Stop breaking my links. Is it still available? Or no. Damn it. Everything's out of stock. I try to keep my site updated, but everything is out of stock. Or discontinued. It's bullshit. Okay, so buy the AKK Race VTX from AKK. Foxeer Reaper Nano, 25 bucks. Let's just look. Let's see what we can find. $15 for a Race Day Quads Mach 3. Absolutely. Just do that. Bingo. That's the one. We'll get that on the website. All right. Say word. Wait, have I re-queued those? Fuck. Say word. Thank you for a $10 super chat. I crashed. The ESC had 0 beeps. I assumed it was getting power because the flight controller and VTX powered up. Correct. I agree with that. Swap the ESC. After another crash, the same thing happened to the ESC. Don't buy that model of ESC anymore. I mean, you killed 2 ESCs. Is there something about the way you're mounting them? Are they like making contact with the frame or something? But like, there's two things you got to do. You got to look real hard in the mirror and ask yourself, is this my fault? Is there something about the way I'm building this quadcopter and this ESC that is causing it to die in a crash? Like, the number one simplest thing that could be is if you mount the ESC without enough spacing between the ESC and the frame so it can contact the frame. Now, that shouldn't like just insta-kill it, but maybe by bad luck, there's a component somewhere that's getting knocked off. The other thing is, have I bought shitty ESCs by either bad luck and maybe I just need to buy a different brand of ESC? Say Word says this is the only build doing this. The rest are the same and never happens. So look at what's different about this frame, for example, that caused these ESCs to die. Snoopy FPV suggests it has something to do with Sayword's soldering technique, but if Sayword has done a bunch of other builds and this hasn't happened, then it's not their soldering technique. Stevo FPV. If your modes are moving, but your flight channels aren't, see if the failsafe mode is active. Having failsafe mode set up and active will cause your control channels to lock out, but your aux modes will still work. Car Guy for Life, thank you for a $5 super chat. I built my first quad and I can't get the Betaflight splash screen to go away and the normal OSD to appear. What am I missing? I don't know. That's bad. Is the flight controller actually working? Maybe you have a bad OSD chip or something. To me, I can't think of any like option in Betaflight that would cause this. To me, this feels like your flight controller is damaged. I hate to say it. How to get a quad to fly super smooth, like slow-mo. Thank you for €5, J Sound. In some vids, like after a power loop, they come down super slow. Mine drops like a rock. I mean, J Sound, I'd have to see more about what you're actually talking about. There can be, like, for example, if I wanted to come down super smooth from a power loop, I would flatten out, right? Is that what's happening? Are they like flat? They could have a different camera angle than you. If they have a low camera angle, they're going to be flatter coming out of the power loop than you are. You're going to be more angled into it. Like, there are a lot of little characteristics that could cause that. Unfortunately, I don't like, I think of the first time I saw Johnny FPV fly. Let's take a little trip down. Let's take a little trip down memory lane. This is always fun. We're going to look at Johnny FPV, not from his recent stuff, but his old stuff. Let's go way back in the world and watch his freestyle. And I remember the first time I saw Johnny FPV's freestyle, I thought he was defying physics. I could not figure out how he made the quad move like that. Johnny FPV from way back in the day, 7 years ago, back when he flew freestyle. Hold on. Ooh, my vidIQ has to load in. There we go. And he just seemed to defy physics. I don't actually know how this is going to look, because these days, the moves that Johnny FPV pioneered are now just kind of a part of people's language of freestyle tricks. And I don't know if this is actually going to look just like some dude flying in his backyard to today's eye. I really thought he was doing impossible stuff. Like that rewind there, I couldn't figure out like how he did it. Wow. You know, this is actually really cool. I'm not trying to say, don't take this the wrong way, but like, I can do all of these tricks. I can do all of these tricks, except like super clean rewinds I still struggle with. But like, this is Johnny FPV. He posted this video as this is me. This is like good freestyle. Now, this was 7 years ago. But like, I can do all of these tricks. I am as good as Johnny FPV from 7 years ago. Probably not. That's probably not true. I'm joking. Like, a lot of this stuff just blew my mind. Let's see if we can find another good one. It doesn't actually feel like that's like... Yeah.
There's one from 5 years ago, the Korean Bando edit.
Korean, here it is. Abraham is posting it. Oh, I remember this one. This is bananas. At least I remember it being bananas. Let's see if it still feels bananas. What a great location. What a dream location for freestyle. So like, he's like really floating and smooth here. I think there's definitely some stabilization on this camera, which is helping give that smooth, flowy perspective. But a lot of it is just he's a great pilot, and he's just doing things with the quad that are hard to figure out how he's doing them.
Eric Asler in the chat says, video idea, build a quad from 7 years ago and then try these tricks with that quad.
Yeah, Rotor Riot did that. Rotor Riot did a flying old quads. Here you can see Johnny's developing some of his juicy feel. You can see that freaking stabilization by how close it looks, by how zoomed in the camera is. That's unfortunate. He's getting that sort of floaty, juicy feel. He's doing a lot of moves where he is not flying forward. He's turning and flicking. And a lot of this stuff is just freestyle today. And people don't realize that Johnny was one of the pilots who actually pioneered this stuff. You know, this is like when your parents make you listen to Elvis. And they're like, you kids, this is where rock and roll came from. Like, I feel so old when I say that stuff. But it's really cool to have been there, to have seen, to have lived in a world where no one did moves like this at all. Everyone just mostly flew forward and did tricks. And Johnny, and probably other pilots too, but to me, Johnny's the one who sticks in my mind, came along and was like, wait a minute, what if we didn't do that? And just this style came out of nowhere, and is bananas good. So my to go back to the super chat, the question is, how do I get the quad to do this? And the answer is, it's not a setting, it's you and your fingers. And maybe your rates, but it's you have to just learn how to reverse engineer the trick and figure out how to make the trick work.
Can you switch the chat back?
Yeah, sorry about that, Blunty. Live stream chat. The chat isn't. The live stream. Live stream chat's still up.
YouTube chat has not been feeding into the queue.
Oh.
Since you started watching the video.
That's weird. Oh, probably because it saw the YouTube window, maybe. Let me just check this. Test. Did that work? That worked. Okay, it's alive again.
So we missed one super chat in there, FYI.
Oh, well, let me get it right now. Which super chat was it?
It's not going to show up in the queue. It's Royden Lep, 1999. Okay. Yeah.
Royden Lep, thank you for a $20 super chat. Then we still have like 5 more super chats. You guys keep, as long as you guys keep feeding the super chats, I'll keep answering them. I apologize to the folks who are leaving regular questions. I do want to get back to you before the end of the stream, but I obviously give the super chats priority. Royden Lep, thank you for a $20 super chat. Thanks for helping me via email last month. I discovered that Betaflight 4.4 base tune gives me horrible oscillations on the bench. When I went back to 4.1, everything was smooth. The number one reason I would say for that, Royden Lep, is if you did not load the correct RC link preset. So Betaflight 4.4 is a lot more aggressive in how it filters the RC command, the input from your controller. And if you're doing a high-speed control link like Express LRS at 250 hertz, 500 hertz, 1000 hertz, you have to load the correct RC link preset in the Betaflight presets tab. If you don't do that, you don't always get horribly noisy, grumbly motors, but you often do.
Oh, sorry. You just tested that you could send a message, but you always get shown when you send a message. It's still not feeding the chat in.
Okay, let me reload the page. Okay, I've reloaded the page. There we go. Now it's working for sure.
There we go.
Okay, cool. Great. So continuing the super chats. And Blunty, can you also make sure you're queuing Discord questions preferentially so that when we get, because I feel like many of these super chats, if not all of them, are not coming from the Discord, and I want to make sure the patrons also get some love before the end of the stream.
I cannot change queue order, but
No.
Yeah.
Just make sure that some of the Discord is going to get in there. All right. Argyle Sky, thank you for a $5 super chat. Does the M10 GPS chip work with Betaflight 4.2X and below? My quads are tuned great. I don't want to upgrade the firmware. Argyle Sky, only Betaflight 4.4 has support for the auto configuration of the M10 chips. And Betaflight 4.4 is buggy and doesn't work. So actually only Betaflight 4.5 will fully support auto configuration of the M10 chips. If you download uCenter and manually configure the chip, then you can use it with any version of Betaflight you want. It's just the auto configuration that is missing, and it is missing. Drano Drones, thank you for a $2 super chat. Just wanted to say, looking good in the Bardwell shirt. Yeah, this is my FPV Lux t-shirt. I don't wear this. I think it's a little bit corny to wear a shirt with your own face on it, but I thought just today, I actually like the shirt. Just don't wear it a lot because I think it's a little corny. JC Cantrell, thank you for a $4 super chat. Appreciate your generosity, JC. Did JC have a question? I don't think so. Saiyan FPV. Science? Super Saiyan? I have a Happy Model EP2, which connects to the Boxer, but not Betaflight. Everything's updated. RXs to TX. Tried on Goku F405 and Mamba F7. Even tried multiple UARTs. Thanks for a $5 super chat saying, the first thing I would check is, what is the LED on the receiver doing? For example, a common mistake that people make is to enable model match. And if you enable model match, but you don't set model match up correctly, then you'll get this situation. If that's the case, the LED will be blinking. I think it's a triple blink, but I'm not 100% sure. Basically, if the LED on the receiver is not solid, then you have that's probably a problem, that you have a problem in the Express LRS system. So check that the LED is solid. If the LED is doing a triple blink, then go into your Lua script and turn off model match. Propspalter, thank you for 5 Swiss francs. Making sure here. That does not seem like there is a question. So thank you for the donation. Stevo88, thank you for a $5 super chat. Where can I go to learn setting up my 5-inch quad to give my V2 goggles, Jumper T Pro controller to Betaflight and learn how to tune also? It's my first build. That's a tall order, Stevo. I mean, I have videos about a lot of that stuff. I have a build series that I did with Get FPV, and you could watch that and see the approximate things you have to do, but it's not going to help you with your exact build because it's not your hardware. If you want to pay Blunty, he'll get on the phone with you for an hourly rate. He has a fee for one-on-one calls, and he'll walk you through it and show you how to do it. Blunty, is that fair to say? I don't want to put you on the spot.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely correct. The only thing I don't really do is tuning, but I can explain like what PIDs and filters are, why you might want to set some, and explain some helpful presets, but I just don't dig into tuning.
It's pretty difficult to tune remotely because tuning is kind of a real-time thing. It's not that it can't be done, but as far as getting the quad set up and configured, and I believe it's not just like Blunty that you will... if he wants you to just do it for him remotely, I assume you would. But if he wants you to kind of teach him and walk him through it, you're also good at that.
Yeah, I would just say that's probably the best application. I'm happy to also do it for you, like you said. But I think people learn the most when, I'm kind of walking them through it, and then we can learn what each tab does, and why you might go there, and what the settings do, and that sort of thing. Okay.
So that website is www.itsblunty, ITSBLUNTY, itsblunty.com. And there's a page there. Or if you are on Discord and can talk to Blunty on Discord, you can arrange it there. Obviously, I can also just link you to 100 videos But it sounds like from the nature of your question that you want someone to help you with your specific quad. And I probably don't have a video for your exact hardware. JC Cantrell had a super chat. It wasn't connected, though. Don't know why. The question is, Radio Master ELRS modules like the Ranger and Micro. The Ranger is easy to set the TX at 1 watt. My Micro module is TX at 100 milliwatt. How to config the Micro or edit the Lua scripts. JC, they should both, do they both? I think they both support 1 watt. So I don't see, it should be exactly the same. If your Express LRS module is locked to 100 milliwatts, doesn't that mean that it's been set to EU mode? I think that's what it means. Is Captain Bry still in the chat? Stardust FPV says yes. JC, my guess is that you have accidentally flashed the Micro module with EU mode, and you need to reflash it with FCC region. Yay, Captain Bry is there. He agrees. I always feel so smart when I say something and Captain Bride says I'm right. I don't know. Yeah, so JC, reflash that and make sure it's set to FCC region. Tyler Getse, thank you for a $5 super chat. Cadix is advertising a Walksnail Avatar plus Synolog 2.0 combo for $800. This makes the Avatar approximately $169 off. Is this worth it or just go DJI? So here's what I would say, Tyler. $169 is not enough money to make you pick the video system that you don't really want. Okay? If you think about it, $169 is approximately 1 VTX. So how many VTXs are you going to buy over the, let's say, four years on average that you're going to own this system? Oh, probably a lot. So if you decide that Walksnail is the system that you want, then take this, enjoy your free VTX, and have a great time. But if you really want DJI, if you've looked at all of the parameters and decided DJI is the right one for you, don't buy the wrong one just because it's $169 off. If you're on the... both of the systems are good, and anyone could use either of the systems as their daily driver. There are ways in which the O3 is better. There are ways in which the Walksnail is better. I would say that the price difference alone wouldn't be enough to sway me. If it was $500, maybe it would be enough to sway me. But for $169, to me, that wouldn't sway me. I haven't really answered your question, have I? Here you go. Matmo46. Thank you for a $2 super chat. OG Air Unit, black controller, version 0106. Okay, here's the issue. Matmo46 has, way back at the beginning of the stream, has goggles 2, an air unit, and a controller, and you can't get them to bind.
V2, I think, just to be clear.
Are you sure it's the V2?
I'm almost positive you said V2. Maybe he can tell us in chat, but I'm...
You don't. Let me look back. No, I can't see his old super chat. I'm sorry, but that matters. Matmo, don't leave a super chat. Just tell us in the chat which he did say the V2
goggle. Yeah.
Okay, great. Okay, fine. That does affect the answer. The V2 goggle will bind with the OG Air unit and the black controller on firmware 0106. So the first thing to do is I have to run through the hardware that you've got and make sure that the firmware will allow them all to bind. For example, if you have the 03 Air unit and if you have the goggles 2 and the Vista, the firmware that lets the Vista bind to the goggles 2 prevents them from binding to the black controller. So that combination wouldn't work. But your combination of hardware will work, and the firmware that you're on will also work. Okay? So if they won't bind, my next guess is that your goggles are in the wrong mode. Your goggles can be in one of 4 modes: the DJI FPV drone mode, the DJI Avata drone mode, the DJI O3 air unit mode and the DJI digital FPV system mode. You need to be in the DJI digital FPV system mode. And you can make that change under, I think it's under settings, device about, or settings about. That's my guess. My guess is that you have your goggles in the wrong mode. Oh, Steve Trick says the radio will bind and the goggles won't. Does the black controller work with the DJI FPV drone?
No. So the OG air unit only works with the black controller if you're on the right firmware to work with the V2 goggles. So we know he's on the right OG air unit firmware. And if that happens, they'll bind fine. You just can't get radio connection to the flight controller if the SBus baud fast that Steve is talking about is correct. So you don't have to do SBus baud fast first. I can promise you don't.
No, because SBus baud fast controls whether the flight controller sees the signal, but you can still bind regardless.
Yeah, it has nothing to do with video. It's just the controller. Yeah. And he can't get the OG air unit to bind to the goggles V2. So I think you're correct. I think it's the mode the goggles are in kind of has to be the thing.
I don't know what else it could be.
Yeah.
They're also pointing out that you have to bind the goggles first and then the controller. That is correct. Because every time you bind the goggles, it erases the controller bind. Blunty, do you identify with this?
A little bit, yes.
Probably more often than you like to admit. That's great. That's fantastic. What a great GIF. Who finds these GIFs? Oh my God, we're caught up on Super Chats! Yay! Finally, we can get back to the real people. Not the people who paid to be here. Okay, let's take some questions. And as I said, I'm going to take some Discord questions next. And Blunty, keep an eye out for a comment from Motmo46 if he's like, no, I'm definitely in the digital FPV system mode. Actually, don't do that, because if that's not the answer, then I don't know what the answer is. So let's just let the chat assume that I answered correctly and get on with our life. Okay. Body by FPV. Love that username. Hey Joshua, been having an issue with my GPS home arrow and the goggles pointing the wrong way when I take off. Body by FPV, the thing that I know can cause that is if you have a GPS with a compass, okay, then the orientation of the GPS matters. And if the GPS is oriented wrong, the compass orientation will override the GPS heading and the home arrow will point the wrong way. What you have to do is, here's what you do, okay? So first of all, tell me that you've got a GPS with a compass. Because if not, then I don't know what to tell you. But assuming that you have a GPS with a compass, what you do is you plug in the quad, you run a compass calibration, first of all, and then you point the quad, you put your goggles on, and you turn your quad so the compass is pointing north. Okay? And then you look at your phone and you see, is it pointing north? Okay? And if the quad thinks it's pointing north, but actually it's pointing east, you have to go in and you have to change the sensor alignment. So let's go into Betaflight here real quick. Let's see if we can do this in Betaflight. If we go to configuration, mag alignment is what we're going to change, okay? Mag alignment. So you're going to adjust the mag alignment 0, 90, 180, or 270 to get north to be north. And then the problem is that once north is north, you could still have it flipped upside down. So the next thing you do, once you've got north facing north, the next thing you do is you face north and you rotate 90 degrees to the left or right. And you see if now east and west are correct. And if the compass is upside down, north will be north. But then when you rotate to the west, the compass will rotate to the east. Okay, you follow me? And if that happens, so let's say you find that clockwise 90 makes north be north, but when you rotate left or right, the rotation is the wrong direction. You're going to go to clockwise 90 flip, and then that's going to fix it. All right. That's the answer of how to get your compass calibrated and facing the right way. Take another question from the Discord server. Would you trust buying a Chimera 7 from a stranger? I have seen it fly, but he keeps calling it a plane. Well, on some level, that may be the perfect person to buy it from, since he's probably going to give you a good price. Buying a used quad is always questionable. It could be perfect. It could have been crashed a million times and be broken. It is very risky. I wouldn't buy a used quad that I couldn't see and inspect in person. Okay? And test fly. And I would always want a fair discount buying a used quad. Now, like, for example, I sometimes sell used quads that I have. I don't ever sell like beat up pieces of shit. I give them away. But like, if I have a quad that I reviewed and I don't want it for whatever reason, I don't want to keep it, I'll sometimes sell them. In that case, like, it's basically brand new. I reviewed it and I'm vouching for it. And if you buy it and it turns out like, oh, the motor was broken, I'll find a way to make that good, because I have a reputation and I don't want people out there cussing my name. But if you're just buying from some schmuck on Facebook, who knows what you could get? It's pretty risky. Let's see here. We'll take one more from the Discord, then we'll take some questions from the YouTube chat. Cloudy Ace says, I'm about to update my Express LRS receiver. I was trying to remember if Joshua and Blunty were talking about it being better to use the web versus the configurator for some reason. Cloudy Ace, I always use the web-based utility to upload firmware, because the configurator ones, there's just too many little things that can make it go wrong. And when the configurator works, it's completely seamless and amazing. But if it doesn't work, it's a pain in the ass, so I usually just skip it. Alrighty, let's take some questions from the YouTube chat now. Lucid Vax. Oh, no, this was a Discord question by accident. Oh, well, I guess I'll take it. I had a question about microphones and FPV again. I got a Rush AGC mic and soldered it to my first Rush Tank Mini. My DVR didn't get any audio. When I plugged the headphones into the goggles, my feed went very bad. Not sure if these things are related, but I'd love to hear your thoughts. I don't know why plugging headphones into the goggles would cause your feed to go bad. That's weird. I clicked on this question by accident and then thought I would try to answer it anyway, but I actually have no idea. I don't use a microphone and I don't have any experience using an earbud while flying. So unfortunately, I don't actually think I can answer it. Sorry, Lucid Vax. I did my best. DNX wants to know, one of my motors cuts out at higher RPMs after a hard crash. No visible damage. I can't feel any drag. The ESC looks fine, and no continuity from the XT60 lead to the solder points. Is the motor dead? I mean, something's dead, right? It's either the motor or the ESC, and the way to fix that or figure that out is to swap the motor and see if the motor works again or not. If you swap the motor and it doesn't work, then it's the ESC. Giesenberg says, I have a V-Fly whoop store, but the battery voltage reported by the whoop store is very different than the battery voltage that shows up in the OSD. What's up with that? So Giesenberg, there's two things to say about that. The first is that when the charger is charging the battery, the voltage that you see will be higher than the battery's resting voltage. Think about it. If the battery is at 4.0000000 volts and the charger wants to make current flow into the battery, the charger has to apply a voltage higher than 4.0 volts. So during the charge cycle, you will often see the voltage be higher, but then if you were to unplug the battery and put it on a checker, it would be lower. At the end of the charge cycle, though, when the battery is finished charging, the voltage should read correctly. Okay, so that's the first thing. There's a lot of times on my Whoop store where I'm charging a battery to 4.35, but the Whoop store is at 4.38. It's not overcharging the battery. It is trying to push current into the battery to get the battery to go up to 4.35. Although, shouldn't it have switched to constant voltage? Shouldn't it have switched? I don't know about that. That's an interesting question. The other thing is that, so let's say that now at the end of the charge cycle, the Whoop store says charging is done and it's reading 4.35, but you plug it in and it's reading 4.30. Well, the thing to do is to take a multimeter and test and see who's right. So your flight controller could also be out of calibration. Let's see here. Dangster FPV wants to know if a camera mounted under the drone gives better flight performance than the top of the drone due to center of gravity and so on. Dangster FPV, this is probably an example of something known as the rocket pendulum fallacy. The idea being that the weight being under the drone will like tend to make it settle, and the weight being over the drone will like tend to make it fall over. And the truth is that that doesn't work like that. And explaining why it doesn't work like that is way outside the realm of this spreadsheet. Why did I say spreadsheet? Way outside the realm of this live stream. There's a great video made about the rocket pendulum fallacy by Tom Stanton. This is my favorite one. It's not the only one, but I think it's the best. Tom Stanton does a video showing why the rocket pendulum fallacy, how it works, and so on. And the conclusion is that having the weight below or above does not make the drone want to tip over or make it want to fall back into place. Here's an example of his test. In this test, if I remember correctly, you think to yourself, well, obviously the drone just flew away. He doesn't have the flight controller active. The motors are just spinning at constant speed, if my memory is correct. It's been a while since I watched this. And there is no tendency of the drone to settle in any particular direction. It just takes off and flies away. So he's showing that the pendulum fallacy is false. And that's why it's called the pendulum fallacy. So as far as mounting the camera above or below, it does affect like where the camera is, but it doesn't affect how the drone flies. What affects how the drone flies is how far the weight is from the center of gravity. That has an effect on flight performance. But being above or below the CG, I don't think it matters. Eagle Ash, or however you say that name. What's the best price to performance flight controller for 5-inch FPV? In my opinion, it has got to be the Speedy Bee F4. That's it. It's an easy answer. Let's get this question from Timone's FPV that I clicked on by accident. What sticky battery straps and pads do you recommend? You can buy Grip, but there are also other people are now making it. Like, for example, Rotor Riot has a sticky battery pad. Rotor Riot has a sticky battery pad. You can't see this. I think Flywoo makes one. Flywoo Ultra Grip battery pad. Yep, that's the same stuff. The original is Grip sticky battery pad. Those are the three that come to my mind. I'm sure there are others. If I just search for super sticky battery pad, what do we find? It's all Grip. Damn, Grip crushing the SEO. Here is some grip available on AliExpress. You were specifically asking about AliExpress. It looks like grip is available on AliExpress. I'm not sure how that works, but there you go. That's the answer to that question. Sky Sailor FPV wants to know, are all capacitors round? No. Surface mount capacitors are rectangular. PD Puff FPV wants to know, what's your take on the rumor that DJI is lowering the O3 price in August? That would be cool if that happened. I don't really think there's a lot more to say about it until it happens. I did hear some people wondering, oh, does this mean that they're discontinuing the O3 or they're releasing a new air unit? It seems early for that to happen. Just in DJI's product life cycle, there's a certain rhythm to it. And it seems early for them to be marking down, discontinuing, and upgrading the O3. So who knows? Tyler Getze says, I went from flying 1S tiny whoops to trying a 6S. I destroyed the drone. What's the best way to adjust between the two? I mean, I'm guessing that you just aren't as experienced with the 6S. You need to just get used to the way that it flies. That's just a matter of experience. You just need to be more careful and recognize that your familiar reflexes aren't going to work. You can't fly a 6S with your tiny whoop reflexes, and you just need to slowly develop new reflexes and muscle memory. Argyle Sky FPV wants to know, what should I set the warning cell voltage in Betaflight for a lithium-ion pack? I recommend 3.1-ish volts. Lithium ions will go down to between, let's say, 2.8 and 2.5 volts. The actual chemistry, the actual voltage where they drop out depends a lot on the individual battery. Personally, the other thing to keep in mind is that some 18650 cells aren't like really lithium ion chemistry and will sag out at 3.0 volts. So the first thing you got to do is you got to test it and risk killing the battery. You got to do a test where you fly the battery down to like 2.9 volts and see if it's actually a lithium ion or if it drops out at 3.0 volts like a lithium polymer battery. If you verify that it can actually go below 3.0 volts, then personally, I think around 3.1 is where I would put it really depends though, because some batteries will go all the way down to 2.7 or 2.6, and some will go down to like 2.8 and then sag out. And you really have to test them to find out. Let's see here. Protend to Go says, these days it's almost impossible to get views on freestyle. How would you make peace with it mentally? I think if you want views on freestyle, you need to be on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube Shorts. I see a lot of freestyle content when I'm on those platforms. And I think that, like, you look at what people like Lumpy FPV are doing, and they'll post like a 15-second clip of an amazing trick or a good run. I think that people don't have the appetite for 3 or 4 minute freestyle videos unless they are really exceptional. But like a 15-second clip or a 20-second clip with a really interesting trick or something, it fits really well into the TikTok, YouTube short, Facebook reel, whatever you want to call it, Instagram even. I think it fits really well into that format. And you absolutely can get views. But I think you may just be on the wrong platform if you're making, 3-minute freestyle edits.
Also, just like, I think it's worth pointing out, you Like like you said, there's a million people making freestyle edits. Like, why is your freestyle edit worth watching over somebody else's, right?
Yep.
Like, I mean, you have to have some kind of differentiating factor or personality or tag or style or something, right? Because otherwise people are just not going to be interested in watching what you're watching or what you're doing. So.
Yeah, absolutely. The same advice that I always give about making content applies here. And that is that you have to make content first and foremost because you like making it, and second because you want people to see it and respond to it. The reality is that most people are not going to. Everyone can't be in the top 3% of views. Okay, most people are going to be in that long tail and not get very many views, and you're not going to know if you're going to get super popular until you make a lot of content. Very, very few people are going to make their very first video blow up and go viral and become super popular. And frankly, if your very first video did go viral, your chances of then staying relevant after that are very low because you don't know why people respond to that. They don't know who you are. And so there's every chance that your next video, people are like, what is this guy doing? And not like it anymore. Okay? Like, think about the Island Boys. The Island Boys had that big hit, that big song that blew up. They got super popular. And as far as I know, they're one-hit wonder. Somewhere out there, the Island Boys are going to come find me and punch me because they think I'm disrespecting them. So, like, what you want to do is start making content, figure out who you are as a creator, figure out what kind of audience you connect with, let your audience start to find you, let the algorithm start to figure out who your audience is, and then grow and try to make content that people want. And you have to do that for a long time before you get popular. And a lot of the time you don't get popular because there just isn't an audience for your content. So if you're not doing it because you love doing it, it's not worth it. If you're only doing it for the grind, it's not worth it. It's too much work. It's too much time. And the chances of you should just go do something else with your life. So that's my advice. Do it because you want to do it. And then maybe the success will come. There's a question, Blunty, I don't know if you flagged it. It had to do with okay, let me get this one from Glorious Quads. No, not that one. Sorry. I don't. So let me address this one then. Chris Rosser's latest video shows that DJI reduced the output power of the Vista when the Goggles 2 firmware is installed. That's a fact. Now, Chris Rosser speculates that the reason they did this is because the Vista would be, if the Vista output as much power in O3 mode as the Vista does in Vista mode, then the Vista would have more power and therefore more range than the O3. And DJI didn't want that. So Chris Rosser guessed, he explicitly speculated, that DJI nerfed the Vista when you upgrade the Vista to work with the Goggles 2 to make sure it didn't outperform the O3. And the question is, do you want to rant about this? Back up, I'd say. Back up. Slow down. Slow your roll. There is any number of reasons why they might have done this. For example, we know that when you update the firmware on the Vista to work with the Goggles 2, the Vista fundamentally works differently than it does when it's working with the V2 goggles. The way that the signal is modulated and transmitted, there's a whole bunch of shit that changes under the hood about the way the signal works. What if that would make the unit get hotter? What if that causes the Vista to overheat and they had to reduce the output power for heat management purposes? I don't know. I made that up. But I don't think you should assume that DJI reduced the output power of the Vista just like to nerf it. So for market, I mean, I'm not saying that they wouldn't do that. I'm saying we don't know. So there's nothing to rant about there. That's what I would say. There's a question about battery testing, Blunty. That's the one I'm looking for. Let me see if I can find it. Here we go. Snorky wants to know if I'm cooperating with Chris Rosser about battery testing. Yeah, so Snorky, I actually, so for those of you who don't know, Chris Rosser has been doing a whole bunch of testing. He's got a thrust stand, he's got all kinds of test equipment, and he's putting out interesting results. And he recently started trying to raise money to buy a battery testing machine. Well, I actually have a battery test machine that I got some years ago and have made various attempts to put it to use. I've done videos about it, but they have been a little bit few and far between. I actually just recently did a video about folded cell batteries, and I did some testing. But I reached out to him just last week, and said, hey, do you want my battery test machine? Since clearly I'm not getting as much use out of it as you might. And it is in the process. It's going to be shipped back to West Mountain Radio. They're going to do a refurbish recalibration on it just because it hasn't been in the factory for a while. And Chris actually has some ideas for modifications to the machine that they're going to do. They're going to mod the machine for him to let him do some things that it can't do out of the box. And then they're going to ship it to him in the UK. So yeah, I'm lending, let's say a long-term loan of my battery test machine to Chris Rosser, since he has the inspiration and the excitement to use it. And right now, that's just not something that I'm spending a lot of time doing. So, yeah. It seemed obvious. He was like, I need to raise money. And I'm like, no, you don't. I can take care of this problem for you. Let's see here. We got 10 minutes left in the stream. Let me make sure that we get rid of any final super chats before we finish the stream. Siati, is Siati streaming today? I saw him briefly in the chat. I assume he's streaming today. Siati is going to be streaming at 3 p.m. and he'll start posting links to his stream if you guys are interested in just keeping the streaming love going. Vice versa FPV, thank you for a $5 super chat. How big is the form factor difference between a Tyrannus X9D and the Boxer? Is it worth switching to the Boxer? Vice versa, the X9D is a solid radio. The Boxer is smaller and more compact and has a smaller screen. As far as how big is the difference, I couldn't say really, unless you can just find a picture out there of them side by side. It's smaller, but it's not a lot smaller, but it's definitely smaller. Is it worth switching? I mean, that just depends. If you're happy with your X9D, it can do everything you need it to do. But if you want the Boxer definitely has a nicer feel to me than the X9D. I like the smaller form factor, and I like the built-in Express LRS. Those are things that might make you want to switch. Matmo46 says, you nailed it! I got it to bind! He was in the wrong mode. Yay! I love when I solve a problem. I love being right. I love helping people. That's another way to put it. Much Thump FPV, thank you for a $10 super chat. Where is model match in the LRS config? I can't find to turn it off. And the Lua says model mismatch. That's your problem. You need to turn off model match.
Yeah, just so you know, I fixed it. The Express LRS troubleshooting page, I think, is wrong. Okay, it tells you in the solution to fix model match, you need to go into the Express LRS configurator and turn off model match. And I think it's supposed to say Lua there, or Web UI.
Oh, no, it's not in the configurator. It's in the Lua.
Yeah. So we got it all fixed for him.
Oh, great. Thank you. Thank you for the $10. Thank you for $10 more. Pavo Christatus, thank you for £5. OG Vista with a jello like a bent prop changed everything and eventually corrected with changing the camera. Okay. There you go. We know the O3 air unit sometimes has vibration and jello problems. I've never heard of it with a Vista camera, but anything can break. Oh, Captain Bryce says he's fixing the docks. See, what a great crowd we have. That's fantastic. Special RS devs are super responsive, and I love them for it. Flacky wants to know, I've been out of FPV for almost 3 years. Should I update my DJI V1 goggles and air unit firmware or fly it as is? I'm sus of recent laws and whatnot. Is there a best firmware release version? So Flacky, there is no concern with things like remote ID or geo. There's no reason not to update your firmware. You will not end up screwing yourself out of anything. If you intend to route the goggles, you may want to do that before you start updating firmware, but that depends on what version. I think you need to be on 0607 to root. I'm not sure. You should look into that if you're interested. But there's no concern because you can always roll back if you need to. There's tools to let you do that. The only thing I would say is the air unit needs to stop at firmware 0608. If you go past 0608, the next firmware is 0101, and 0101 only binds to the goggles too. So on your air unit, stop at firmware 0608. Other than that, you're good to go. Let's see here. Ellis for Life wants to know if I've seen the new version of EdgeDX. Is there a new version of EdgeDX out? 2.9. Ooh, what do we got in 2.9? Let's look at the release notes. Rewrite for color screen interface is now complete. Turning tabs on and off globally. Oh, that's nice. You can have the helicopter tab turned on for your helis, but not anywhere else. That's cute. Let's see what it looked like. Show me what I want. Oh my God, it's a commercial. I just want to see my fucking content. He's really making me nervous pointing at the screen with that Sharpie pointy thing. Interesting. That's cute. USB joystick support. Oh, you can configure how your controls are presented to the computer. That's interesting. Flashguy support. Don't know what that is. DSM telemetry fixes. That's cool if you fly Spectrum, but I don't. Collapsed by default. That's interesting. Hebrew support. L'chaim. A mute speaker option to remove buzzing. Interesting. Okay. Doesn't seem like... It seems like mostly like housekeeping stuff and bug fixing. That's cool though. What's Name wants to know, when tuning, is it better to tune with air mode on or off? My opinion is that you should tune how you fly. However, there is an exception. If you are doing Brian White's PID Toolbox style tuning, his approach is to disable all the dynamic stuff and try and get your base PIDs correct first, and then add the dynamic stuff back in on top of it. That's fine, and that produces good results for some people. But if you're trying to do a more Chris Rosser style PID tune, where you're flying the quad and looking at how it flies and listening for things and so forth, and not really diving deep into the actual step response of the PIDs, then I think you should have it set how you're going to fly it, and you would want it with air mode on. I always fly air mode with air mode on. The reason you can push the PIDs higher with air mode off is because the authority of the PID loop is being reduced. So I don't see why you would turn it off. And I think you're going, like you're saying, you're going to get bad results. If you tune with it off and then turn it on, your results aren't going to be valid. Okay. I bent my VTX antenna halfway. What consequences does this have for my connection? I mean, if it's not actually broken, nothing. The bent cable is fine. Yeah, so you're good. Faith in Paradise wants to know, why won't my QX7 Access bind to my Archer RS? I don't have the money to super chat. Oh, okay, that's fine. I answer lots of questions that aren't super chats. I don't guess that it could be a firmware version, because the whole point of Access is that it'll update the firmware over the air. Have you bound an Archer receiver before? Because like the Access binding is, you have to register it and then bind it. So have you bound an Access receiver before? Do you know the actual process? Yes, I have. Is it just this one receiver? I mean, I would try to register it and update the firmware if possible. Do you have to bind it before you update the firmware? I can't even remember. I don't know. I don't have a quick answer. Oh, and it's 3 p.m. Ciati is going to be streaming at 3 p.m. How to fly smooth and a mailbag. We did have one super chat sneak in, though. When Betaflight warns me of flyaways while PID tuning, is it just a warning or is it actually dangerous? No, it's just a warning. Lots of people fly. I mean, eventually you will get flyaways, but like those are super conservative, and I wouldn't worry too much about it. Just be careful while you're flying. Okay, folks, that's going to do it for today's stream. Thank you so much to everybody who was here. Thanks especially to the patrons in the Discord server. Thank you to the people who left super chats, and thanks to Ciati for following up after my stream. Head on over to his stream, and I will see you tomorrow for the next one. Bye, everybody.